A friend once told me, if meditation was a sport, it would be shooting. I was born in India in 1982. I dedicated countless number of hours and effort to perform in this sport. My career has been a long journey that taught me so many life lessons. I won the first ever individual Olympic gold medal for India.
What a historical moment for India.
My name is Abhinav Bindra, and this is my story.
The youth today has seen it. I can go to any village today and say, oh, do you guys know who Abhinav Bindra is? They say, yeah, we do.
Abhinav Bindra sir has been an inspiration to me. Oh, he's basically a legend in shooting, I can tell. Oh, everyone will work hard to be like him.
When you start the competition, there's a lot of pressure and your heart rate is very high, so you're a little bit slower. You play with patience, so you have to be patient with yourself. In my sport, you're completely competing against your own self. Yes, there are many other people shooting, but your biggest competition is your own self. It's courage to pull the trigger at the right moment and at the right time. Like it?
Yeah.
The best shot that you've shot.
10.6 till now.
Wow. All the best. The center of what we are really aiming for is that little dot. It's that small. It's 0.5 millimeters, and if you hit the dot, you get a 10. And in the final, we then scored in decimals. So that means that it's no longer just a 10, but it is 10.1, 10.2, the best shot being a 10.9. We're talking millimeters and sometimes even a tenth of a millimeter, like your hair. Just one hair of yours, it can be the difference between a gold medal and going home with absolutely nothing.
Right from his childhood, he's been very focused. If he was doing his studies, he would give his 100% to studies. And if it was playing games, he would forget about everything, just focus on that.
He was very ambitious. He wanted to do everything, and he would not give up.
My family, my parents had a great influence on me, and both my parents were very hardworking. Giving up was never an option. My father used to live on a farm, and he had a few guns of his own. He used to clean them and, oil them, and I was always so very fascinated by what he was doing. I used to hold the gun, and he used to pull the trigger. So that was my first initiation into the sport of shooting, and I loved it.
Having seen him from a young age, when he picked up the gun and he was shooting, that he had an inborn talent, which was a God gift.
I, of course, completely disagree. I don't think I had any talent. Okay, a little bit hand-eye coordination, but talent,
Dedication is a talent. Everybody can't be a dedicated person. His only aim was to win an Olympic gold. Nothing less.
The boy, he was so much keen in this and hardworking in shooting. And I told him, key to shooting, you have to control your mind.
Colonel Dhillon had a tremendous role in my life. I mean, he's the man who taught me how to hold a rifle. He was a fatherly figure of sorts. I spent so much time just training hours and hours and hours and hours with him.
Under the mango tree only, it was very difficult. There was a honeybee came up. I said, you don't look at the honeybee. You only concentrate on your tip of the foresight and the target. I was mighty impressed. I said, this boy has something inside.
And then I won the club competition, and then I wanted to win the state championship, and then I wanted to win the national championships, and then I wanted to represent my country, and then, of course, I wanted to be an Olympian. It was something, a desire which came so strongly from within me. It was almost like a calling. When I reached Sydney, I was like a boy in a candy store. I had that childlike enthusiasm and I was in awe. So for me, it was unbelievable just to be a part of that event.
India's relationship to the Olympics is almost tied in with national self-esteem. You know, you're always comparing yourself. Why can't we be like the Chinese? You know, the Chinese are just, they came back and they had medals everywhere. You know, in diving and TT and all other kinds of sports.
So all countries are winning gold medal at Olympics. India is such a big country, not winning a single Olympic gold.
And the story that was told to a lot of sports journalists coming through in the 90s, like I did, was that Indian athletes only want jobs. They are not ambitious enough. They don't have killer instinct. They're vegetarian. You know, there was all this other stuff you just kept hearing.
For a shooting athlete, the Olympics is the moment. It is the moment to make a big name for yourself. It is the moment where the world will take notice of you.
It's like the grandest stage. We had not done well. India had not done well. So we so wanted individual medals at the Olympics for a long time. We had heard about Abhinav at the time. We knew that there's this young boy who was doing well at the international level. He missed the final in Sydney by so little, which nobody had done in all the years. And he's a teenager. He could have gotten distracted by so many things, you know. So you said, you know, there's something about this boy that is exceptional.
My performance in Sydney gave me a lot of internal confidence and belief that, yes, I can do it at this stage. You know, sport in my country, in India, was still at a very basic level. And I knew very early on that if I wanted to have a chance to succeed, I had to get that expertise from outside. I had to get that expertise from the best in the world.
And at that time, German shooting in Germany was quite, they were the best. Well, he came over from India alone. For the first time, we pick him up here in the airport, close by.
Gabby and Heinz are, for me, family. I went to them as a young boy. I lived in their home. I have a very, very special bond with them.
He just could be my son. And that's, I think, also how we were treating him a little bit.
You know, he came to our home very well educated.
Quite shy, quite still, calm. He was a little bit autistic. He was just staying in himself and in his shooting. He was so focused, determined in what he's doing.
Your ability to find this stillness and calmness in the midst of complete chaos is what really defines my sport. And that is the skill that you can never be born with. It is a skill that you have to work on. In fact, achieving the stillness of body is very complex and complicated because the human body is really built to move. It is not built to remain static. I think one of the most important things in a shooting position is to get the stability not from muscle but from your bones. As soon as we start to use muscle to gain stability, it's a disaster because muscle then leads to tremor and the rifle shakes even more. Just imagine how challenging that is when your heart is pumping at 160 beats per minute and you are trying to find that little window to release the shot. What we're trying to achieve is really shoot the shot in between heartbeats. So it is really an art to find that balance and that harmony between mind and body.
Between Sydney and Athens, his performances improved enormously. His family was behind him. He had his own plans and he would do it that way.
My mother and my father are very different in characters, and they helped me in many different ways.
We all worked as a team. It was our dream as well.
And you would see those results coming through you. We kept getting emails. Abhinav Bindra has done this, Abhinav Bindra has done that, he's gone taking part. And so we always knew what was happening with him every week after week whenever he competed. So when Athens came around again, well, you had that sense that the next medal that India could get could possibly also be in shooting.
So I reached Athens probably in the best shape of my life. I wanted to win. I broke an Olympic record in the qualification rounds. I shot a 597 out of a possible 600. I think I was ranked number 3 going into the final.
Representing India, Abhinav Bindra.
I haven't ever felt so alive in my life than the time when I walked into an Olympic final hall.
We were really excited because at that time he had been considered a contender, like a serious medal contender. He was the guy.
There was a very realistic chance of ending up on the podium in the final.
For the first competition shot, load.
But you also know when you entry into the final, the game is open. Then everybody can make a medal.
Attention. 3, 2, 1, start.
It just happened that I shot the 10 worst shots of my life.
Line 3, 9.8.
I just crumbled. I thought that I was doing everything right, but something was just off.
He was shooting really bad, so he was going out till the 8th. This is like kilometer away from the center.
My rank from 3 slowly started coming down. I reached to the bottom of the list. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. And my world had fallen apart.
Kismet is destiny, so K-I-S-M-E-T. The saga of Indian sport is that we miss medals by this much. Everything is missed by this much. So when he lost in that final, we said this is it. This is our Kismet. This is our Kismet.
Athens was a huge disappointment to him.
He came back, he could not sleep because the man has worked so hard.
And I think it was 2 weeks after the games had ended. It was the middle of the night in India, and I was still not sleeping. My coach, Gabby, gave me a phone call.
And I phoned him and I said, Abhinav, I found what was going on the final.
In this final hall, on the floor that I was standing on, it was a wooden floor and the tile was a little bit loose, which made it impossible for a shooting athlete to find the stability.
You could not even imagine that this can happen at the Olympics. He was under shock, absolutely shock.
I changed as a person with this experience. I became a person for detail. I wanted to make sure that I took into consideration every little thing that could happen during this particular day. Obsession is really a child of ambition, and I was, of course, very, very ambitious. And I got very, very, very obsessive about every detail of my body, of my mind, of my equipment. Training for the Olympics, I went to South Africa and I mapped my brain.
Electricity to measure the brain waves and stuff. He tried really everything.
I read a studies at one point of time that yak milk was something which was very useful for focus. So I even imported yak milk, and I don't know if it ever helped me, but I certainly consumed a lot of yak milk in parts of my career.
He did everything humanly possible. If this happens, I should be ready for that.
Ammunition, I would weigh each pellet of mine. I would use a magnifying glass to find any scratches on it and things like that. I would just hold my rifle and get into my shooting position in a completely dark room. Chasing perfection is like chasing an untamable beast. But what I was really fortunate was that, I was surrounded by people who always got me back to reality, to keep this obsessiveness and to keep this paranoia of sorts in check, because otherwise I would have probably gone crazy.
Internationally, everybody was talking about this kid who actually should have been an Olympic medalist but didn't win.
How is he going to handle the pressure?
The youngest man to ever represent India in the Olympic
The stereotype started again. Indians just are not able to win at this highest level, and then they crumble under pressure. So it was a tough environment, but it was also motivation, because I wanted to prove them that, no, we can do it.
Representing India, Abhinav Bindra.
I had the job to do, and I wanted to shoot the 10 best shots of my life. But of course, there was a surprise waiting for me. We had at that time 5 minutes of warm-up shots, and I remember that the first shot was a 4, and I had probably not shot a 4 from the first day I went to train with Colonel Dillon.
When I say, what the hell is going on? The target must be not okay.
I straight away thought back to Athens, and I said, again, something is going wrong. The sights on my rifle, for some reason, had gone out of sync.
And I just remember his big eyes looking at me, turning his head. So what shall I do?
And then I suddenly remembered we had simulated a certain scenario like this, and I had to make a mathematical calculation. I had to give 40 clicks on my diopter to get it back in the center again.
And then the final started.
And my first shot in the final was a 10.7.
Line 4, 10.7.
Now it's focus on the next shot and on the next shot, one moment after the other.
Line 4, 10.4.
But he would say 10.3, 10.4, and his scores were going up, and then he was still in third.
After 4 or 5 shots, I already was in second position.
Line 4, 10.5.
You could see him climbing up on that scoreboard, but because of this whole Kismat scary thing that it's going to going to miss by that much, and then we'll all cry for another 500 years. And you're saying it's not going to happen because we are Indians, our luck is bad. By that time, you stop thinking cogently or logically or anything, and you've just collapsed.
Line 4, 10.6.
Going into the last Olympic final shot, Henry Häkkinen and myself were tied. So it all depended on one shot, on who would go back home with the gold medal.
The last shot was the shot.
The time between the two shots, it's like an eternity.
Adrenaline fills your body. You have to find that courage from within you to take this last plunge and to take this leap of faith.
He says, what happened? What happened? I said, he's won a gold. And I ran to my temple to thank God.
I said, Singh is king.
Abhinav Bindra bringing the gold. What a historical moment for India.
From within, I was so happy and I was so fulfilled. I achieved what I set out to do. All the sacrifices that I made, all the belief that all my family had in me and my coaches had in me.
I wish we were there. I wanted to give him the first hug.
There were men who were crying, male reporters who were crying.
I got onto this podium even before my name was called out. I got onto this podium when my country's name was called out. And to me, of course, it was a personal victory, but of course, it was also a great victory for that belief that, Indians can get to the top step of this Olympic podium.
What a significant achievement it was for national consciousness as well as national identity.
This Kismat thing, it was just out the window. Now no more. You know, it had been done.
And then the word spread like a fire.
Abhinav Bindra ने gold medal जीत लिया है.
India's Abhinav Bindra.
Gold medal लेने.
They're winning India's first individual gold.
Any individual event.
And in 2 hours, I had in this whole premises 600 journalists.
Everybody called us to congratulate. From Bollywood to Prime Minister, President.
It was Monday morning in India. And they were at school and they called the kids into assembly again. And they said, India has won its first gold medal. And I'm talking to you and I'm getting goosebumps.
This is a moment that you'll never forget. You know, it's like one of those big moments where you know where you were when you heard it.
He was on the cover of every magazine that was there. People wanted to talk to him all the time. People would look at his medal and say, can I touch it? Can I see it?
His achievements are as much or more than any sportsman of this country ever. And I heard the story and instantly I loved the story.
Abhinav Bindra's biopic has finally gone on the floors. Anil Kapoor will feature as his on-screen father.
It was no longer my achievement, it was an achievement for the entire country. And just the reaction that a lot of people had completely overwhelmed me, and that I was definitely not prepared for.
It was a light bulb which went off in terms of what it means to be Indian. But I think it's the moment in time we look back and say Indian sport changed in that one moment.
And so suddenly the Indian youth said, wait a minute, you know, we can be players in these games.
The numbers in shooting just increased. They went from something like, say, about 200 people competed at a national shooting championship. It became 3,000. It was like that.
From one day to the other, I was left goalless. You know, for 16 years of my life until Beijing, I had oriented my life towards this one goal and to this one dream. And then one fine day, this dream was achieved, this goal was achieved, and this beautiful gold medal was in my pocket. And I was left with a great void. I was left with a feeling of, now what do I do?
He doesn't want to be known as India's gold medalist. He wants to have a much bigger impact on his legacy.
But for a country like India, I think sport has a tremendous capability to be an instrument of change and an instrument of social change.
When you're able to do something for others and help them succeed and help them do well, it's also a different sort of internal satisfaction. I set out these centers which are called the ABTP centers, Abhinav Bindra Targeting Performance. We use a lot of science and technology. What do you enjoy doing? The balance thing? It helps, huh? Has it helped you bring more awareness? Shooting, again, like it's mental, but it's a lot to do with your body as well.
What this game changed was that it made locally possible what people had to travel to Europe, to the US, to Australia to go and train. And it's sitting there at your doorstep today. And that changes the entire game.
Because to be the best in the whole world, you need to have access to the best practices and the best facilities. And it's so gratifying to see that sport is growing. Ironically, that childlike enthusiasm suddenly came back. Huh? And that is a very special feeling to have. Huh? That is what the essence of sport is, and that is how the whole sporting career really should be. The Rio Olympic Games I knew was going to be my last Olympic Games. My father always worked hard and did everything possible to enable me to fulfill my goal and was a great supporter in my journey. And I wanted to do something that would make him happy.
I'm a very nationalistic man. I like India and I like an Indian flag.
But it was always my father's ambition to see his son be flag bearer at the Olympic Games. So for me, it was fulfilling his dream.
It was a very big honor for us as a family. He's our son. what can be bigger? God has given us everything. This is Abhinav Bindra.
In Rio, I look back at my journey with an incredible amount of fondness, with incredible amount of pride, and I absolutely had no regrets. Of course, it was about winning, and it was about winning in a sports event. But to be very honest, it was a journey of knowing myself better. And so I think more than an athlete, I was an explorer.